Hey everyone, it's Sunny. So I know this is really weird because it's not Edison, but I'm rather upset with the new Banlist and I wanted to vent about it. I don't expect anyone to watch this video, and future videos will not be OCG unless people are actually interested. So for those who don't know, I am primarily an OCG player, and ever since starting to play current format with Power of the Elements, we are in what I consider to be the absolute worst format of all time. Snake Eyes Tier 0 was some people like it, but in my opinion, that was not a very good format. But Konami somehow one up themselves and made the Demonsmith, or Fiendsmith, sorry, archetype, and then the format got even worse. And since the game is so hilariously terrible right now in the OCG, I was really hoping that Konami would do something about it. Maybe that was a bit naive because they can't really make an insane ban list for Worlds, but if the TCG ends up banning Beatrice, which I think they will based on their ban history, then it wouldn't even matter for Worlds anyways. But to start off, the bans are just Kaiser, Coliseum, and Turtle, and these are good bans, but OCG bans typically are because the OCG has a very laissez-faire attitude towards their community, so if they're banning something, it's got to be for a really good reason. Floods and FTKs being gone are typically considered good things by many competitive players, and I personally think that FTKs and most floods should not be legal. So these are good changes in my opinion. But that's why this is confusing, because the Catapult Turtle ban is for attacking on FTK, which makes me think that the OCG also does not think that FTKs have a place in their format. But they limited Beatrice as if anyone was playing more than one. Beatrice is the absolute most disgusting card in the game right now, and I think anyone playing the OCG at any serious level will probably tell you that they want Beatrice banned. Even the people who are abusing Beatrice themselves don't want this card legal. And the thing is, Beatrice has always been a card that was dangerous and potentially abusable. Like the TCG banned Curious, but Beatrice is just a quick effect Curious, which means that it dodges Ghost Mourner, and you can use it on your opponent's turn. The only reason it didn't wasn't banned earlier is because it just didn't have a super easy way to summon until right now. But one Demonsmith now gets you Beatrice in a Link 2 body, which is a massive problem. My guess is that they wanted to leave Beatrice so Snake Eyes could still use it to find starters since they hit Ash to 1 and Bonfire to 2. But Beatrice does way too many disgusting things. Like some of the ways I've been getting FTK'd at my locals is Beatrice sends that Tears card, the blue Tears angel of an Angel card, in Snake Eyes, and then it banishes the set Harpy's Featherstorm, and then they just use two bodies to make an ensemble blue album. Another example is Lab. Lab players have been trying the Demonsmith package to send transaction rollback on their turn, which then sends a Mayakashi trap in my draw phase. Now these are things that are just happening at my local level, but if you look at national results, even though they don't play necessarily Featherstorm, they still play the blue Tears card, sided sometimes for going first, because it's only one brick, and then they can just side a floodgate that would one-shot the matchup anyway, such as D-Barrier. It is a strategy that is dropping in popularity, but is still very, very efficient for when you go first. That makes games worse, in my opinion, because it just creates more non-games whenever you open any of the Demonsmith engine. I understand that the Demonsmith package can't get hit because it just came out in Infinite Forbidden, but banning Beatrice doesn't make the Demonsmith engine that much weaker, and it will still be played even if Beatrice is banned. The ban would stop you from accessing your Snake Eyes engine in your using your Demonsmith engine. That's correct, but you still get a one card Caesar and a Link 2 body, or just a one card 3 material Appaloosa without committing your normal summon. Like people are still going to be playing the Demonsmith package without Beatrice, but Beatrice is so strong that people have started to cut Caesar from their list, which is unreal because Caesar himself is also a very strong card. And I know that the FTKs usually don't come out except when they go first post board because you have to play two bricks. But the main issue is just that Beatrice enables bad things to happen, and it will only continue to cause more bad things that happen as more cards come out and the longer it stays unbanned. Summon limit to 1 is good. Less floodgates are pretty much always good in my opinion. The Tenpai Field Spell to 1 I actually think is massive, but my feelings about Tenpai are a bit controversial because I actually like this deck. I think it's good that Konami is experimenting with different deck designs, and making super overtuned cards is pretty much the only way that they can make a viable going second deck. And in my personal opinion, it's still not good enough because going first is just that good. So I like Tenpai because I think it's funny to play, it's funny to watch them beat other people, and also it never beats me because I do think that there's things you can do that massively increase your win rate against Tenpai. And it shows because, I mean, this is kind of a non-statement, but I've never lost a Tenpai in tournament, and it flopped in the TCG. But I do think it performs in the OCG. And when I talk to players here, they typically think that Tenpai is very strong. But I just disagree because Tenpai is only as good as a non-engine it can open. But that's just the same as every other deck in the format, except you are going first instead of going second. Like if you get hand trapped by any other decks and they resolve their combo while you don't, then you're going to lose. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh is in the current format. But the only exception is the field because that's when the games turn uninteractive. With one field, I'm pretty sure that's just going to destroy the deck's results. Not only have they lost two starters as well as access to the best card in their deck, But if you manage to build a board at all, their actual engine probably will not be good enough to win engine to engine. Right now, it tops a lot because it's a very inexpensive deck that's easy to play and it's very popular in tournament. So the raw number of entrants is very high, which means that it doesn't need to have a high conversion rate to top. But I'm pretty sure next format is just going to be Yubel and Snake Eyes as the best decks by far, which is very frustrating because Snake Eyes has been a very strong deck in the OCG for 8 months now, which in my opinion is a very, very long time for a deck that had perceived tier 0 strength and has been tier 0 for a very, very long time. Gimmick Puppet of Strings to 1 definitely does not do nothing. I haven't spent too much time with Gimmick Puppet, but you summon 2 of these to FTK when I was practicing combos. I'm not sure if there's a way to FTK with only 1 copy, but there probably is if you just summon this later. I'm not too sure how the sequencing would work, but it at least makes a combo much harder if it's still possible. I'm just not exactly sure how it operates. It's more likely that 1 interrupt will stop it. SP to 1 is a bit of an insult. The only thing more laughable than SP to 1 was SP to 2. No deck played 2 except for those with infinite extra deck space, where they played the second one as sort of an insurance policy. And that is even more true when you consider that Demonsmith is like 6 extra deck spots. So all the Demonsmith decks, which is most of the topping decks, don't even have space for the second. Ash to 1 is just a consistency hit. Master Duel has Ash at 1, and it's still the best deck. I talked about it a bit above, but the Demonsmith engine can even still access their limited Snake Eyes Ash if they're truly bricked. So Snake Eyes is going to be just fine. I guess it makes Crow a little bit stronger, but if they top deck Oak or Bonfire, then they just get it back in later turns. I'm also not really a big fan of consistency hits, but it's just the OCG philosophy, so I just accept it at this point. I can't really talk about the other things. The Kieran and Plushfire, I genuinely have no clue what they do, and I haven't seen them before in a match, but I'm guessing since Kieran is freed in the TCG, and it doesn't do anything, that is probably a good sign, and it's fine. The semi-limit list is also fine because rulers are cool and are freed in Master Duel and don't do anything, so I'm pretty sure this will just be a good change. And then the last change on the semi-limit list is just Quick Fix. I didn't play Spiral format, so I don't know if this is potentially really dangerous, but I do think that this card is just out in Master Duel, yeah? And it doesn't do anything because if someone knows, let me know, because I have friends that are afraid, but they're also afraid of Sprite getting cards back, even though there almost is full power Sprite in the TCG, and it's still a bad deck. The unbans, I also don't have much to say except for Colossus. I think that this is absolutely huge, and I could see this being a big deal. The thing about Thunder Dragon is that one Colossus in 2024 is not that threatening. You can ladder into SP, or you can save your one imperm for it, or you can even talent stake it. There's things you can do, but the biggest issue with Colossus has always been what happens when they summon the second one. It is infinitely harder to out 2 Floodgate bodies that have protection than one of them. So I could genuinely see this being a pretty annoying problem. I do think that Colossus Limited is actually fine. Like, yes, it would be better if it was banned because I don't really like Floodgate monsters, but it has enough counterplay to not matter enough, to me at least. But when you have the ability to summon multiples, that's when it gets a bit frightening. Now, to address the elephant in the room, Maxx C is not on the list. However, there is absolutely no OCG player that thought Maxx C was getting banned, at least not on this ban list. The only people who thought Maxx C was getting banned this ban list were the TCG players that don't know anything about the OCG. And I'm not a Maxx C defender, nor are many of the OCG players, but the reality of the game is that there is too many issues right now if you just ban Maxx C. Like, I have to explain a cultural difference here, but the OCG has far more casual players than the TCG. Asia in general has like a trading card game culture that I can't really explain very well. Like in TCG and Western countries, pretty much people who are playing are mostly playing strong decks and are at least semi-competitive, which makes sense because the game in the West is so damn expensive, but that is not the case in Asia. Asia has a much larger trading card game player base, and there's much more crossover between games. So you'll see people playing White Shorts or Vanguard when White Shorts is basically just never even got started in the West, besides being a collector's game. On the weekends, the area I play Yu-Gi-Oh in has several hundred players, and there's just factually more players and more casuals. There's also more gamble culture, or it's not gamble, sorry, I don't really know how to phrase this, but people like to purchase random things. Like you can see this from just the amount of gachapons in Asia, like if you're ever in East Asian countries, or their marketing and anything, just K-pop albums, for example. And in many ways, this is good because it means they can print lower rarities and not have stores shut down because there's always people that want to buy packs regardless of how bad of a return on investment it is, because they don't see it as an investment at all. It's just playing to for fun, spending for the enjoyment of opening packs. But this also means that Konami is afraid of losing their player base to one of the many other card games. The example I always use is if they ban Block Dragon, then they're afraid the Emancipator pet deckers will just quit and play One Piece instead, because the OCG is filled with pet deckers. That's why they have so many consistency hits and rarely fully kill a deck. And that's also why they left so many ridiculously powerful cards legal. So if you ban Maxx C first, then all of these decks will just become incredibly popular. And the only reason these FTK Wombo combo decks don't dominate is because they are inconsistent in a meta with Maxx C. You can play them, but if you get one shot by Maxx C, which has 56% presence, assuming 40 cards on both sides in every game, then you're just not going to win enough to consistently top. So Maxx C functionally discourages these decks from being played, even if Maxx C doesn't make these decks unplayable. I personally don't think that's a good idea, in my opinion, because I'd rather do what the TCG is doing and just ban all of these cards if they're ludicrously powerful and pretty much win the game when they resolve. But since this is the reality of the OCG, you have to ban the things that are untouched before banning Maxx C, which includes things like Block Dragon, like Galaxy Tomahawk is another one. These cards just have to go first, and that's going to take time across multiple ban lists. Also, they literally just reprinted Maxx C in the Tactical Tri decks, which are supposed to be decks that you can pretty much just buy and start playing the game competitively as a new player. So if they included two Maxx Cs and then they proceeded to ban Maxx C about a month, not even a month after these decks release, that's a pretty bad look. But yeah, that's about all I can think of for now. Next podcast will be Edison. This is just an emoji tour I had on a very sad Sunday night.